Hello and welcome back to Azure Terraformer. Today, now that we have the module library up and running, I thought I would go out and set up a new module for a Linux VM. This isn't like going to be the most robust Linux VM or one with all the bells and whistles, but it's something that when you're working with VMs, it's nice to have kind of an easy and simple VM module that you can rely on that takes care of most of the stuff. So you can get a simple VM out there and start messing around with it. So that's what I'm going to do today. I built a similar module in previous episodes, so we're going to start with that, and we'll refactor it a little bit and talk through some of those design decisions. So without further ado, let's get going. So I have my Terraform module library here. I'm just going to, in the root folder, set up a folder called compute. And we'll get our basic file structure in place. Now, let me go look at some of my old Azure Terraformer code. I post all this stuff out on GitHub, so I encourage you to go check it out. Look at it. I post it out and I try and do this so that it's in its original state per the episode, so that you have the exact code that I worked on, so you can see it. Mistakes, imperfections, and all. But yeah, so I'm just going to take this from way back in episode 9, and I'm going to start from that. So here it goes to my main. So here I just have a NIC, and then I have a VM block. Don't have any disks or anything fancy like that, because again, we just kind of want to get something up and running quickly. And again, this is a reusable module, so I'm going to drop the provider declaration, and I'm going to set greater than or equal to. I should probably extract the virtual machine size out. And then let's extract the admin user. To make this more reusable, because sometimes you want to change your IP configuration, in the future I might change what NIC I'm using, but for the time being, I'm just gonna leave a NIC here. And so there we go. I feel pretty good about this. Now, one thing that I could improve here is I could optionally allow the user to pass in a marketplace image, because I may not always want to start with my own custom image. Using the source image ID on the Azure Linux virtual machine basically says I want to use a custom image, not a marketplace image. So I think one thing that I could do to improve this, to make this a little bit more flexible, would be to optionally allow the user to pass in a VM image, or if VM image is left null, to accept a marketplace image. So I'm going to set the VM image default to null. And this is a good setting for any input variable that you want to have mutually exclusive options, to set the default to null to allow the user to modify that. So as an alternative to the VM image ID, I'm going to allow a new object of type source image reference. And this is going to be a type of object. Now, to declare an object type, an object structure in Terraform, it feels a little weird. The syntax is not very natural. I come from a C# background, so it took a little getting used to this. But it's kind of like when you create a map, you're going to be using curlies to create the structure. And so when you define the type here, you basically provide key value pairs of the object's attribute and then the type of that attribute. And so I'm just gonna, in Azure, we have 4 attributes that are pretty important. And then I'll also set this to default to null. Okay. So now basically I have 2 mutually exclusive variables, the virtual machine image ID and the source image reference. And so when I set this on my virtual machine, this is how I'm going to decide which one to use. So the nice thing about using a null is in this situation, I don't have to do anything, because if the user has specified the source image reference, then bada boom, like source image ID is already null by default. There's nothing, no action the consumer of this module has to do to use that. And so really all I have to do is I have to use a source image reference block to set this. Now, the problem with blocks is I only want that block to be there if the input variable is not null, right? So in this case, I'm going to use a dynamic block, but I'm not going to do a dynamic block over an array. I'm going to do a dynamic block over a kind of a made-up array. And you'll see what I'm talking about. And so this is kind of like a exists or non-exists array. So I'm going to create a dynamic block. And the dynamic block is source image reference. And then I'm going to do for each var, so image ID equals null. So if the image ID is equal to null, then I'm going to iterate over this array right here, which has one item in it. Now the item is just an integer, which is 0. But that 0 basically constitutes as an item in that array. If the image ID is not null, then we're going to have an array of nothing. And basically that means that this block will never get created. And so now inside my content block, I can just set up my publisher. And there you go. So now I'm gonna attach this block of a source image reference only if the VM image ID is null. I mean, I could have done this if the source image reference object is not null, right? But I wanna give preference to the fact that if the VM image ID is not null, I'm actually setting a source image ID value here, and if I set them both, I'm probably going to get an error from ARM when it receives this request to create this virtual machine. So the fact that on line 35 here, I'm accepting a null or a non-null value there, and I'm not doing a check. I basically I'm deferring to the custom image. So if there's a custom image, I'm going to use that. If the consumer of my module is daft enough to specify both a custom image and a marketplace image, I'm going to use the custom image every time. And that's what I'm doing here, right? So these are kind of tricky, situations, but I think if you document your input variables to describe, this behavior, and try and be as upfront and clear as what's happening when that these two input parameters are very much intertwined and related and mutually exclusive, and the preferences to this VM image ID. I think that's what you should do as the author of this module. Whether the future consumer of this module is yourself or somebody else, they're going to be thanking you. So there we go. So I think I am pretty happy with this module right now. Let's go look at this again. Yeah, we got all these things in place. And now what I want to do is git tag. So currently I have this version 1.0.0. So I want to create a tag v.0.1. and then git push origin tags. And so now this tag is present within the code base, and I can go look at it, and this version of the code base has my compute VM Linux baseline tag or module. So now I can go reference that in my projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my code here. And if I go look at my tester, I think here I'm basically standing up this network module that creates a bastion host, and I'm attaching a VM to that Linux VM. So here's my Linux VM. So I think I'm pretty good with that. So let me just grab my declaration of my Linux module. We'll go to episode 36 here, and I'll put my Linux VM in here. Now I'm going to have to update this path, okay? But let me blow out the rest of this project so that I can have all the things that I need, and we can provision this. Okay, so I've moved some things around. I got my network module because I don't really feel like creating a module for this episode. So I'm just going to push it forward. We're working on the VM module, right? So now I've got my local network module, which is pretty throwaway. I've got a resource group here. We're using episode 36 and a rando for naming conventions. I've got my VM here, which I'm just passing in the random string as the name of the VM. And I think everything else is the same. So now my VM, I need to update this to use the network path to my modules. So I have that in the last episode. I showed you how to use a specific tag in your remote module repo. So I'm just going to go grab that. And now I'm going to put the source side by side so you can see kind of the big difference here. And we know that we're not in modules. There's no modules folder, okay? But we do have a compute folder. And then we have a VM folder, and then Linux, and then baseline, okay? Get rid of that. And I'm going to find the spot in my path, which, remember, this is my Git repo. And then this is the folder structure in my Git repo. So I need to pass this in. Now, if I leave the reference to version 1.0.0, my VM module won't be there at all. It won't work. So what I need to do is I need to set the tag to version 1.0.1, which has this Linux VM module in it. And now what I need to do is I need to make sure that I have the right things set up for the right variables set up for that module. So let's go back, look at the module contract again, make sure we have all the variable inputs. So I did add a VM size, so I need to add a VM size input. I'm using a VM image ID, but I'm not confident that the image ID that I'm referencing there exists. So let's add the VM size. And from that episode, we basically used these data references here to go grab the SSH key and the Ubuntu image, right? So what I'm going to do is I think I need to leave those in place, but I'm going to update them based on what is in my currently managed environment. I have my DevOps infrastructure. I have a KeyVault out there. It should have an SSH key. We should be using that. And I have images out there for Ubuntu. So let's go out into the portal. Let's see what I got. And let's find the right things. So I've got my KeyVault here. Let me go look at the secrets. Yes. So I have an SSH key out here in KeyVault. This is in fact why I provisioned this so that I can use this in future episodes. So the KeyVault name is this. Now I want to go get an image that I can use. So let me go to my resource groups, and then let's go look at my, I think it's my dev gallery. And let's go look at my gallery here. What images do I want to pick from? So I've got Ubuntu 2004. I think I like Ubuntu 2004. We're going to go with that. I heard the other day Ubuntu 1804 was like out of service or something. So let's go with this. So I got my gallery resource group name. And this is not going to work. I don't need an Azure image. I actually need an Azure image version. So let me go to registry. Again, I show you guys how I look stuff up because I'm always shocked that people don't have these resources that they go to go find the answers that they need. So I try and make sure that image version, shared image version, there we go. And it's an existing one. So I'm just going to go grab this reference and we're going to drop that in there. So I'm always shocked at like how many people don't have these resources to go get the answer that they need for themselves. So I this may seem kind of like me being Captain Obvious here, but I'm trying to do this for folks that are new, that maybe don't have that muscle memory of where do I get this answer? Like if something doesn't work, or if I'm working in somebody else's code, like how do I get that? How do I go figure out what to use? And so we need the gallery resource group. Okay, so now I need to use this shared image version. And it's going to be Ubuntu 2004. There we go. And because we passed the VM image ID, just like we talked about, we're going to not, like the block for the reference image or the marketplace image won't show up. And some of you have commented that you can't see what I'm typing in the terminal. So I'm going to move this to the editor area, and then I'm going to pin this so that you guys can see what I'm doing in the bash every time. So hopefully that helps. All right, so let's just check this. So I got my module, my local module with the network. I've got my Linux VM. I updated the path to the module. I'm using the shared image Ubuntu 2004, its ID. I'm going to my KeyVault. I'm getting the thing. This looks pretty good. So let's make sure I'm in the right folder. Let's AZ log in here. Let's make sure we're on the right subscription, which we are. Okay. See, lots of, let's just Terraform in it. Lots of bash commands today with a nice big bash window so you can see everything that's happening, which is nice. So there we go, Terraform init. Let's run Terraform apply and just see what it wants to do. Ooh, we did forget the admin user. So yeah, you gotta check the module interface. Okay, let's go back to bash and retry that. Admin user is not expected here. Is that not what I called that? Admin. Oh, did I create so I used the variable reference, but I did not actually put it on. And this is going to cause us problems because we are going to have to add admin user and we're going to have to push a new version, right? Womp, womp, womp. So let's go look at our pull requests. Let's create a new pull request, and I'm being super lazy here. I'm using an old feature branch. I'm just continuing to pump out, pull requests on it. Oops. So here we are. Let me do git checkout main, git fetch all, git pull. Okay, now I'm going to do git tag v1.0.2, git push origin tags. And again, we are going to have a new version of the code at tag 1.0.2, which now has the variable for admin user. Hooray. Now, interestingly, if you go to 1.0, you'll notice admin user is not there. So it's really important as you develop your modules and you change the interface. This is why it's so important to use the specific version of the module and Terraform CLI and the Terraform providers, so that you don't run into unexpected errors when people make changes, right? So never take latest. Okay, so I think we're pretty good there. Let's go back to our code. And we need to update the reference to version 2, because I know version 1.0.2 has the droids that I'm looking for. And I'm just going to run reinit, because I have to pull that module again, because I got a different version of the module. And now let's try. And looks like I am missing some of my standard setup for my root module. I did not bring my versions over. That was bad. And I might as well just fix this. So this is a reusable module. It shouldn't be using these values here anyway. So, okay. So I'm going to fix that, make those fixes. And now let's go back to bash. Let's reinit. So we load everything back, and then let's run apply, and let's see how we're doing. Now this might be an older version. No, it's 3.41, so we're good. Okay, so let's look at our plan. So we got a lot of stuff we're gonna do here. We're going to create a resource group we're gonna create a random string, which is gonna be used in all of our naming. We got a Linux VM here. We've got a NIC, we got our Bastion host, we got a network security group, which has a public IP address for our Bastion host. We got a VNet and a subnet, and we associate our NSG to our subnet. So yeah, let's go provision this. And there we go. We completed the apply, and we have our VM up. Let's go try and connect to it in the portal. And there we go. We connected to our VM that was provisioned with our new Linux virtual machine module. Again, this is a baseline. I'm going to be starting to exercise all the bells and whistles around this virtual machine and kind of expand our module library to deploy this VM in better and more interesting ways. And we'll probably also take a peek at this thing under Azure security and maybe apply some Azure policies to look at how this thing's configured to see if it meets security and governance standards. So hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a like if you did, or even if you didn't. I'll take the like anyway. But I hope you're enjoying the channel. If you do, make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Got a lot of cool stuff coming, and working with a lot of different services on Azure. We just finished up the Minecraft series, and I'm kind of going into a little bit different direction. A little bit more Terraform, a little bit more Azure architecture, a little bit less Packer. So let me know what you would like to hear about next in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe, smash that bell so that you know when my next video drops. Again, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And until next time, this is the Azure Terraformer, signing off.